Hi Max, how are you?
Good.
Okay.
How are you?
Very interesting talk, by the way. You certainly talked about your career, and I thought you could perhaps expand on it a bit, about the trajectory from building your first business to selling it, to then starting Finimize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I studied economics and international relations, and worked in London for around about a year as a consultant, and then kind of found myself with this very famous entrepreneurial itch that often people refer to. So I was kind of always into this like digital entrepreneurship, or digital products rather. I don't even necessarily think of it as entrepreneurship. Sort of, I was at school, was one of the kids who had a website. Who was like the first kid to have a website. I always
About
had this.
what?
It was a very random thing. So when I grew up, it was very difficult to make a website. So you had to code it yourself in HTML and CSS and all that stuff. And so I wanted to learn how to do that, and I basically took a book that I'd bought, and the book just had a bunch of Bart Simpson jokes. Okay. And all I did was basically type up the Bart Simpson jokes and put them onto the website, and that was my website. And it was basically, so I thought it was really cool, and like I really enjoyed it. My final year of university, right before I went to London, I worked at eBay for the summer, and I was like, kind of re-sparked my interest in the internet industry, in the internet space. And basically, while I was sort of working in this consulting gig, I kind of realized, okay, I want to create products myself. I think that's way more interesting rather than sort of sitting on the sidelines and producing PowerPoint and Excel models for some clients. And very randomly ended up then in Zurich in Switzerland, where I built a business. I knew some folks over there. So one of them went to school with me, and we started this online retail business. We basically started off with a very small product and then expanded it, and in the end we're like a multi-category online retailer, so you could buy anything that you could imagine on our platform, and that grew really quickly, and we became the largest online retailer after Amazon within Switzerland. And so we had something like 25% of all households were shopping with us. We're very widespread, a very established brand, but all within the confines of Switzerland. And
still, Switzerland is a big market.
Yeah, and they have a lot of money.
Yeah, true. So I've been there. It's expensive. Yeah.
So that was that, and then I basically started Finimize because I wanted to do something. At the end of the day, if you're selling products online, it's cool. It's cool to build a company. You don't wake up and you're like, oh my God, today I want to sell more products. Like that's just not sort of the ambition or inspiration. And so I knew, okay, I want to build something that's a bit more of a personal project for me. And that's what then really sort of got me very motivated to start Finimize, which we can dive into, but that was kind of from a career point of view, that's kind of where I came from.
Okay. I was wondering, what does it feel like to start off from scratch again? So, I mean, you obviously had a very successful start with that first business, and I mean, it got really high up in Switzerland, and you could have expanded across the European market. You stated the reason of why you chose to sell it off and that, but what does it feel to kind of go back to the beginning with a new firm, build it up again? Is it an exciting feeling? Is it a feeling of frustration most of the time, or is it a bit of both?
The honest answer is probably a bit of both.
Okay.
It's exciting because it's like you're starting from something new, and you have all these like dreams what this can become. And then one day it's like pure excitement, and then like the next day it's just like utter like devastation and like a proper grind, because you realize that like perhaps in your head you have this like vision of what it can become, and then other people haven't really understood that yet, and then there's a lot of convincing and persuasion, etc. That can be from hiring, can be from getting investors, that can be from getting users, and so it's really sort of this roller coaster ride of one day it's amazing, the next day it's really crap, and it's just kind of you have to have I think
a wild ride,
a high tolerance to sort of the fluctuation and volatility of your emotions, basically.
Okay. I was wondering, obviously now the business is very successful. You guys have got a very well-established platform. You've got important names that read and hear your podcasts every single day. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about what that sense of accomplishment feels like. To have 800,000 people that are engaging actively. You talked about 250 group chats of people where they're connecting, 10,000 people meeting at events. Those sort of numbers are what startups think, oh, that I want to see that in, 20 years. You're achieving it now. How long has Finimize been around for?
Mm-hmm. So we started at sort of the end of 2016.
Exactly, not very long.
And I mean, to be totally honest, it's always the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So when you're in it, then you kind of you always think, okay, what's the next thing, and then like, oh, why is this not working as well as we thought it would? And so you never, probably not enough actually. You never really pause and think like, oh, this is actually super cool what we've done so far, because you're always in this like, okay, what's next? Obviously, there's that famous saying, competition doesn't sleep, and so you want to be able to innovate quickly and push forward quickly, and so we very much do that. But I think the reality is that you don't come to work and you're like, oh my God, we're the best. Like you kind of come to work, you're like, oh my God, we might die tomorrow because this and this and this isn't working. I think that's kind of the sort of perception versus reality a little bit in building a startup, or really building any company,
Okay. Now I thought I'd shift it a bit towards the target audience. You talked about that your main target audience are wealthy 25 to 35-year-olds. So obviously they're educated and they care about finance. I was wondering, I mean, that's a good target audience to like start with and that, but I was wondering perhaps if Finimize would, consider expanding to, I don't know, other age groups or to more middle-class families. Perhaps it might. Well, what's your thought on that? Is that a market that you could enter?
So let's start off with like what's the problem that we're trying to solve. So like I said, the reason why I started it because I had built up savings from my salary, from my job, and wasn't really sure what to do with the savings. And so that was the problem that we're trying to solve. And so we're not saying we want to target wealthy people or whatever. I wouldn't even describe our target audience as wealthy. What they do have is they have savings. If they don't have savings, then probably Finimize is of no use to them. I think there's a range of products, whether it's apps or whether it's content, where they help you save. So if that is the problem that you have, then I think there's already a great offer in the market for what you can use. We are trying to solve, like I said, you have savings, then what do you do? And so as a result of that, yes, people do have some money. Otherwise, like I said, it wouldn't be useful to them. In terms of the age bracket, 25 to 35, 25 to 40, roughly is kind of where we see the majority. We do see certainly younger people. We see a lot of students, sometimes even down to sort of high school. But we also see very on the other side, like much older people. So we have retirees who read us every day as well. But when you think about the core demographic, you're kind of thinking about the target user. Who are you building this for? And then everybody else is almost like a nice to have. And so that's really sort of how we define that target user.
Okay. Think about the next steps. Where do you see the business going? So correct me if I'm wrong, but you already have an app. it's doing very well. Obviously, you offer a lot of different services, a newsletter, podcasts, all of that to help the reader essentially get the news that they need to get on the go, quick, in depth, and right to it. Where do you see that following through? Are there anything is there stuff that you'd like to try out, stuff that you guys are thinking about bringing out?
So as I was saying in my talk before, there's two pillars of the proposition that we've developed. Pillar number one is content. Pillar number two is community. On the content side, we're always innovating, bringing out new formats, and there are certainly a lot of things that we still want to do and that we are doing. Most of that is in the app, so you'd have to download the app to check it out. And there we are really expanding our content offering. On the community side, that's really been, it's really been sort of growing very, very amazingly. So in the last 6 months, 10,000 people met in over 40 cities now. This quarter alone, 6,000 people will meet. And so that's like a number where we want to bring more and more people together, because we know when people come together, that's where the magic happens. That's where people help each other, and that's where they help each other achieve their financial dreams. And when we think about the sort of user journey that we're trying to build, and then thinking into the future, we want to have an experience where you download the app, you tell us a little bit what you're interested in, and then we say, hey, you know what, we have a whole content library exactly about what you're interested in, and here's what you should be reading or listening to. And by the way, tomorrow there's a meetup happening in your city where they're going to talk exactly about that topic, and we'll have experts who can help you. And so in order for that to work, then obviously you need to have a massive supply of meetups all over the world. Otherwise, if it only works in London, right now in London we have the highest supply of meetups. But that's not a global business, and so we want to be in every single city in the world where you can open the app and you can have that experience.
So more global outreach would be the goal.
Yeah, exactly. And really building out that offline proposition.
So that's part of, essentially, as you said in the talk, we want to build the world's largest financial community,
exactly,
expanding as far as possible and getting reach out. Okay.
Exactly.
I was wondering more about the events themselves. What are they like? Are they training sessions? Are they a combination of training sessions and just speaker events, or are they networking events? What sort of thing is that bringing together?
So the one thing that people always say to us when we ask them why do you attend the meetup is to learn and to network. And that is exactly the statistic that we found out is the people who do take action, the millennials who do make an investment decision, 90% of them say they make the decision based on consulting peers and learning from experts. And so that's what happens at these meetups. So, for example, in London a couple of weeks ago, we had a topic around impact investing. Everybody's talking about impact investing right now. So we invited the former head of UBS Wealth, the current global head of impact investing from JP Morgan, and the person from the government who leads the impact investing initiatives. And we brought them together, and they had an amazing talk about what to look out for, how to even think about impact investing, right? Because there's a lot of intricacies to this space, actually. And then what happens is people can learn from these experts, and I learned a ton from them. And then at the same time, you can then go and talk to other people and say, hey, how did you start? Because there's one thing talking to an expert, there's another thing getting started. And so the combination of those two things is what creates the value really for you.
Yeah. Following on from that, how do you get these sought after speakers? I mean, everyone's going after them. How do you make those connections? Because it's impressive to get not just a member of the government or a member from JP Morgan or a former member of UBS, but to get all three of them, that's.
I think it's because they realize, like I said also in my talk, and what we just talked about, the audience and the community that we've built is the next generation of investors, and they are acting differently than the current generation of investors. And so it's almost part of everybody's job who works in finance to understand what do they want, how can we help build better products for them. And so I think it's really all about getting them in front of the right people, and we have the right people in our community.
If you had to summarize your business and what it wants to do in a sentence, how would you do it?
So we want to build the world's largest and most engaged finance community.
Okay. And do you think you're close to achieving that?
So we have 800,000 members. We want to get into the hundreds of millions. Like I said, in order for us to really build that proposition that can be localized, we'll need to get to that scale. And so we're very far off from that.
Okay. I mean, from the way that you described it and from talking to other people that use the app and look at it on a daily basis, I have friends of mine that study economics here at work, and when I asked, what's Finimize? Because, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of it, but they were like, what do you mean? Finimize, look at this. They showed me the app. I was impressed. And, you know, I'm a subscriber of The Economist, and I sometimes look at their podcasts, but that looked a lot more like in depth, and I heard one of them, and you know, it's like, it's a whole different thing, and that's something that's really attractive, it seems. And so I do think that that is a unique element of your business. And do you think that's kind of like your secret weapon, your competitive edge over others? That
what specifically?
That element of condensing information that investors might need into just a couple paragraphs.
Yeah, I think that's comes back to the two pillars of the proposition: content, community. Content, we invest a lot of effort, money, time into building great content, whether it's text or audio, and I guess it works based on what you said from your friends.
Okay, well, that's it. Thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.